Hello everyone, today I want to talk to you about the steps that you can take to transform your garden space. These are steps that I take to transform our gardens over here on our property. If you are new here, my name is Chantel. Welcome to my garden. Let's dive in. The first step in transforming any garden is planning and preparation. So you want to assess the location of the garden that you want to create. If you have a garden already there, you want to assess whether you want to keep the garden and the plants in the garden, or you want to take them completely out and start all over again. One of the things that you want to pay attention to is you want to look for water, for electricity, and for gas lines if they are going in that area, if you have never touched that area before. So you can contact your city. I'm not exactly sure how that goes. I've never done it myself because we have a well on our property and we don't have gas, and we have power lines on poles. We do not have power lines in the ground, so I don't have to worry about any of these things. But for you, you may need to contact your city and try to figure out whether you have any of these things in the ground before you start the planning process, because if you have to dig, you want to know where you can dig, and you don't want to dig into any power lines or gas lines or any of the sort. You also want to evaluate what you want to achieve in that space, what you are looking for. To do that, you want to create a garden sketch. And if you don't have to be artsy to create a garden sketch. It could be just basically circles and ovals and geometric shapes. That's all you need, and you can color them in according to the color of the plants that you are going to be adding in that area. And if you feel that you do not have the skills to create a garden space or to design a garden space, you can contact a landscape designer that will help you create a sketch for your garden, and then you can take that sketch and move on with the rest of the process. You will of course have to compensate them for their work because they have spent the time and the effort to create that garden sketch for you. Some garden designers also, or landscape designers, have the ability to create a sketch for you on software that will kind of show you what the plants exactly will look like, and you will be able to visualize that garden space, what it's going to look like. So a garden sketch is super helpful in that manner because it's going to help you to visualize that area. It's also going to help you in choosing a color palette that you want to go in that space, whether you want cool colors or warm tone colors, or maybe kind of a monochrome tone. So you might also just want to choose a very limited palette like blues and whites, which is I find very beautiful. But this is what a garden sketch is going to help you with, as well as visualize the space and create the layers in the garden. Because if you are not talented in the area of creating garden spaces or designing, or you don't feel that you are, you might be, but you have never discovered that you are because you haven't tried yet. But if you feel that you are not, having some help in that area can be very helpful. I try to create sketches for most of the gardens that I start. There are some spaces that I do not, and that's because I'm not exactly sure how I want it to go yet, and so I like to take my time and choosing the plants and designing the garden, so I just do it as I go and I have the inspiration as I go. Which leads us in talking about gathering inspiration. Great places to gather inspirations from are garden magazines, also Pinterest and YouTube. Of course, you can look at other people's gardens and kind of choose what are some of the things that you like about them, what are some of the things that you do not like about them. You can also choose your garden style by doing that, whether you like a formal type space or kind of a more natural and loose kind of space like I have over here. This is sort of a cottage garden, not garden cottage. And these cosmos that I have over here behind me just seated themselves, and I have allowed them to. This space is not yet really developed. The only plants that I have intentionally planted in here are the hibiscus that you see over here. But as I am recording this video, I'm also showing you a garden that I am in the process of transforming, and that I have not created a sketch for it either, because that is the garden that I just kind of want to feel as I go and design it as I go, because it's a huge space and I don't want to be bound to just specific plants, and I want to be able to change my mind as I go in designing in the design process. And it's also a little bit tricky because it's an area where The plants that have to go there have to be drought tolerant because I do not have any irrigation in there, which we will talk about soon. The next step in a garden transformation is cleaning and clearing. So if you have a lot of maybe shrubbery, you want to make sure to clear that up. If you have plants that you want to take out of there, you also want to dig them all up. You might want to leave some of the plants in there, but maybe change their location in that space. So those plants you will either leave to last before you move them until the moment that you are ready to plant them in their new location, or you can plant them in pots and get them ready to be transplanted at the moment of your choice. So this way you kind of have a clean slate to start with having everything removed, and it allows you to kind of visualize that space and what you want to have in there. If you have plants that need some care that you are leaving in their exact location, now is a great time to maybe give them a cutback or pruning, or you might want to give them some fertilizer depending on the season. Of course, if you are heading into the fall, you might want to hold off on the fertilizer because that will allow new growth to emerge, and it will kind of cause the plant to shock when the cold weather comes. And if it's a tree or a shrub, you don't want it to put on any new growth going into the fall because the frost will damage those new tips. So you might want to hold off on the fertilizing if you are close to the fall and do that in the early spring. Now is also a great time to install any power lines that you want installed in the area, in case if you want to add in any water features, or if you want to add some lights or anything of the sort that will be added on into the next step. Now is a great time to do that. It's also a great time to install in the irrigation because while the area is clear and there are no plants in there, it is open for you to do whatever you want. You're not going to be damaging any plants, so you can dig in those irrigation line and have them set up and ready for you to tap into when it's time to plant your plants and install irrigation to them. And the third step is soil and planting. So you want to prepare your soil at this stage, and you want to make sure it is ready for plants to receive plants. Now is a good time to add in some organic amendments such as compost and manure, and those are going to improve the health of your soil tremendously. And it's a good time to assess what type of soil you have to allow you to choose the proper plants for that area. So if you have clay soil, you want to choose plants that will be able to handle that. Clay soil holds on to water, so you want to make sure to choose plants that can live in that kind of environment. It's slow draining. And if you do get a lot of rain, you want to make sure that those plants are able to kind of live in a somewhat of a boggy location or clay soil. And if your soil is super well draining or loamy soil, you want to also be able to choose the appropriate plants for that type of soil. Most of our property over here has very well draining soil, and even in the area where I'm standing over here, that is a boggy location, it still has a good draining soil. So I can choose plants that can survive in a boggy area, and they will do really well, especially in the spring and in the fall, because this area gets filled with water in those two seasons, in the spring and in the fall, and it sorts of act like a marsh, not march. So the plants that go here have to be able to handle that sort of environment. And now in the area that you see me renovate in the entrance garden, that area is super well draining. Also, I did not add any amendments in that area like compost and manure because that area is super sloped, and when it was first designed by, I'm not exactly sure, by probably two owners before us, it was a landscaping fabric was installed and gravel mulch. Now I'm not going to mess with that. The area is super sloped, and if I remove all of these, I will be risking erosion. So my plan is to just keep the landscaping fabric for now, keep the gravel for now, or maybe even into the future, and just plant in that and amend the soil as I go in the areas where I'm planting, because otherwise I will be risking erosion if I just remove all of that. And as I have mentioned, I am slowly working on transforming that area and choosing the plants for that area. So if I were to plant everything at once, maybe removing that gravel and landscaping fabric would be doable without risking erosion. But at this point in time where I do not have tons of plants in there, doing so will definitely risk erosion, especially with the amount of rain that we get over here. If you are new here, we live in New Hampshire, zone 5B. Our zone has changed to zone 6A, but I still garden as I am gardening in zone 5B. Now that you have chosen your plants, it's time for planting. This is the fun part for me. I love planting because now you can start seeing the garden coming together and your design coming together. It is super exciting. The plants might be small, but they will take a couple seasons to put on some growth. But even then, just seeing them in the ground and seeing the potential of what that garden will be is super exciting. So you want to follow proper plant spacing, of course. You want to plant your short plants in the front, your tall plants in the back, and to create the proper layering so that you can see all the plants in your garden. You don't want to have the tall plants hide the short plants in there. And if you are designing a garden island, then you want to place the tall plants in the middle and gradually decrease the height of the plants from the middle on both sides. So you have the lower plants facing the front of the bed and the taller plants facing the middle of the bed, or both fronts, again, if you are designing a garden island. And if it is facing sort of a wall of your house, or maybe, I don't know, your neighbor's side of the property, then you want to have the tall plants in the back and the shorter plants in the front. And every now and then it is nice to include some sort of a taller plant in the middle of the planting to kind of change up that height and add some drama in the flower bed and create some interest as well. As you are planting, also do not forget to add in a good organic fertilizer like holly tone, plant tone, or whatever tone you choose to use. These are great. I love using the Espoma products. I find them they work very well. I avoid adding compost directly into the planting hole. There are some people that vouch for that and some people that absolutely would advise you against it. I do not add it into the soil, but I do add it after I plant the plant. I add in the compost over the surface of the soil, so as the plants are being watered, that compost is going to leach into the soil and amend the soil in that manner. And the fourth step of transforming your garden space is adding features and decorations. These are things like your benches, tables, chairs, bistro sets, and some fountains or bird baths. These all add interest into the garden. They also add a beautiful sound, like the water fountains, for example. You can also have both of them in the same area if you want to have a bench and a water fountain near it, so that as you sit, you can enjoy the tranquility of you can enjoy the sound of the water, and that adds kind of a tranquility into the space and allows you to enjoy that garden space. And you want to make sure to have your bench, if you have it in your garden, to face something beautiful so that you're not looking at something that you don't want to look at when you sit in that garden bench or the bistro set. Now is also a great time to add in your lighting. You could choose solar lighting if you did not install the power lines into your garden space before you have designed it and planted it. And if you have the power lines, that's great, you can tap into them, but if you do not, you can go with solar lights, and there are plenty of options for solar lights. Lighting is a great way to allow you to enjoy your garden space in the evening, especially if it's an area where you are planning on having gatherings in. It's nice to have those lights in there, or even if it's just for you and your family, but you like to sit outdoors. Maybe you have a fire pit and you have a patio area and you want to sit in that space and enjoy the garden space that you have created, then adding in some lighting is a great idea specifically for that purpose. And even if you just want to enjoy your garden from the indoors, you want to look out the windows and see your beautiful garden, having some lights facing up on those plants, or maybe on your stairway and that's leading to your house, so that if you have people coming over in the evening, they won't trip. Those are all great ideas. Other features and decorations that you can add into your garden are, of course, pots and planters, and you can add them into your garden beds, into your flower beds, and those will add height and interest into the area as well. And it will allow you to have some plants that may not be a perennial in your garden, or a plant that, or a tree maybe that will survive in your garden. You can bring it indoors in the winter and bring it back outdoors in the spring. And the last tip that I have for you in transforming your garden is garden maintenance. You want to keep up on weeding and watering and pruning and fertilizing. Those are all things that have to be done if you are going to be busy and maybe you don't have enough time to take care of your garden. You can hire someone to do that for you. And if you want to be the person that does that, which I highly recommend that you guys do, because connecting with nature is just an awesome thing, and just feeling the soil, touching the plants is something that brings in relaxation and tranquility into your life, and it will take all the stress away, just feeling the plants and smelling them and feeling the soil. But to do that, you want to put yourself on a schedule, something that you can attain. You don't want to overcomplicate it. Maybe one day you will have weeding, another day you might have watering. So just keep it simple so that you can keep up on that schedule to allow you to enjoy the garden space that you have created. Because the reason why you have created that garden space is to enjoy your garden. You want to sit in there and enjoy it and relax. This is why this channel exists, to help you transform your outdoor space into that outdoor sanctuary or outdoor oasis. So if you like these types of videos and you want more gardening videos and more outdoor space transformation, click that subscribe button and hit the bell to receive notifications of whenever I upload new videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye!